Well, hello, good afternoon everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you're doing fantastic out there. In this video today, behind me you can see we have a pump house, and on this table I have a 100-watt solar kit that we're going to install on this pump house to get some power out here so we can run this pump. So stay with me. I hope you enjoy the video. This should be a lot of fun. So there's a look at the pump that we want to run. This is a half-horse pump, but as you can see, I have a plug here and nowhere to plug it into. Every time I want to run this pump, I have to bring out my portable power generator and run the pump, but that's about to change. We're going to have power in here soon. So the solar panel kit that I got is from WEIZE, and this is model SP100WBT. This is 100 watts. I will put a link in the description box down below if there's anybody out there looking for this kit. It comes with the solar panels, comes with the charge controller, does not come with a battery or a power inverter, so it comes with everything but that. It does have a little light, and it's 100 watt. Comes with the wires, comes with the charge controller, the brackets, and at the time of me shooting this video, I have paid $59 for this kit. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what it looks like inside. There you can see there's nothing left in the big box here. We do have a small box, SP10A. This is all the stuff that we need. And then of course, let's take a look at this monocrystalline solar panel. And that's what the solar panel looks like. A very nice looking aluminum framed rigid solar panel. 100 watts. And just in case there's anybody out there curious about the dimensions of this solar panel, it's about 44¼ inches long and about 17¾ inches wide. And there's a look at the technical data, the specifications of this panel. And there's the junction box. And you can see these long wires. These are about 3 feet long, and they already have the MC4 connectors on them. And the panel is already drilled, so it'll be really easy for us to install the brackets. There's 4 holes pre-drilled, so that's pretty nice. I'm really liking this kit so far. Let's go ahead and take a look at this box and see what's included here. This has everything that we need. The first thing that we're going to see here is the user manual. So let's take a look at that. Solar panel introduction and installation. Very nice. Again, you need to add a battery and an inverter. It comes with everything else though. Engineering drawings. Very cool. Installation location instructions. Feel free to pause your screen if you want to read this a little longer. How to use the Z brackets. Those are pretty self-explanatory. So now we'll come down here. It's showing us that we need to mark for holes, but we're going to do something different today when we mount it on the roof. So very cool. That's how that looks. And then it talks about the Z brackets on a roof. Not too bad. There's the MC4 connectors. Not a bad little user manual. How to connect them in parallel. So if you had a 200 watt system and you could connect 4 panels in parallel if you wanted to, you would need these connectors here. Now for this kit, it's just a single panel, as you can see. But it's nice that they show different wiring options. You would need a different charge controller if you're going to run multiple panels. So very cool. I like that. That's cool. The next thing that we see is the wires that come from the solar panel down to the charge controller. These already have the MC4 connectors on them, so that's really nice, and those look like decent wires. The next wires that you see go from the battery to the charge controller, so not bad. And when you make that connection, you always want to hook your battery up first. The next thing that we see are the Z brackets. There's 4 of those. These are nice aluminum brackets that's going to be giving us the ability to mount this panel. And then of course you have all the hardware to go into whatever you're going to mount to, plus the nuts and bolts to connect these brackets to the panel. The next thing that we see here is this small LED light. This is a 12-volt light, and I tried this off camera, and this light is actually pretty impressive. So there's 2 little screws there, and there is a double-sided tape. So what you could do with this light is you could put the double-sided tape and tape it to something, or you can unthread this light like this, and it comes apart, and then you could run your 2 little screws through those holes and screw it to something. And then of course you want to put this cover back on. Make sure you don't screw it down too tight and break that LED circuit. You don't want to damage it. But it's a bright little light. Like now on the wire, when you connect this to the charge controller, you're going to have one wire that has a little black line on it, and the other wire does not have a black line on it. So the one without the black line is the positive, and the one with the black line is the negative. So make sure that you don't get that wrong. And the last thing that we see here is a PWM charge controller. This is pulse width modulation. Now the cool thing about this, and I did the research before I purchased this, is this charge controller will run lithium iron phosphate batteries. So that is fantastic. That's the type of battery that we're going to be running today. So here is a little bit of information that comes with the charge controller. We'll go ahead and thumb through this user manual. Again, if you want to pause the screen, you can do that and read this stuff a little longer. And without further ado, I'm just going to get through this. So system wiring. So you plug in your battery first, then your load, and then your solar panels. Very nice. And then of course right here it kind of goes through the UI a little bit. Main thing that we want to look for if we're using lithium iron phosphate is the battery type right here. So we want B07. That's going to be our lithium iron phosphate right there above my thumb. Lithium iron phosphate battery. And it'll have all the parameters ready to go for that type of battery. So very nice. Then it continues to go through and show you the system. There's some error codes that you could encounter and what each one means. Some facts to look at. And then lastly, some specifications of the charge controller, and the one that we're working with today is this HC2410, a 10 amp charge controller. And then right here it gives you the charge and discharge parameters based on what type of battery you're running. If you're running a sealed lead acid, a gel, a flooded lead acid, a lithium, or a lithium iron phosphate, it gives you all the parameters based on those batteries. So very nice. Nice little user manual that comes with this charge controller. You also get these terminals that you can crimp on. So it looks like there's 6 of them. And then lastly, of course, the star of the show is the charge controller itself. So nice little pulse width modulation. It does have 2 USB ports there. There's a look at the back. You have 4 little holes here where you can mount it. This little door opens up. Then this is your button that you can push to turn on and off the load, or to push and hold to cycle through the modes, which we'll talk about later. So your battery goes here, positive and negative, solar panel here, and then load here. 12 or 24 volt. Very nice. Let's get started installing this system. Okay, the first step to installing this system is to put the brackets on the solar panel. So we have a series of screws and the brackets here. Now this is the screw, the nut and bolt rather, that is going to hold the bracket to the panel. So they're very easy to install. You just put it just like this. So you'll take the bolt, run it up from the bottom, put the bracket on just like this, and the nut goes on just like that. It's not too complicated. And then this is a 10mm nut. So we'll just tighten that down, get them nice and tight here. Let's just go up to about there. We want to make sure that they're nice and tight so that they don't come off. So now we have our brackets firmly installed on the solar panel, and at this point it's ready to mount on the roof. So we're looking at a standard 2x4 that I ripped in half. I'm going to mount this 2x4 down on the roof, and then the solar panel is going to sit on top of this 2x4 just like this, and I'm going to use these screws that were included to screw it down onto this wood. So what I need to know before I do all of that is what is the distance that these 2x4s need to be apart from each other. So that is 20 inches. They need to be 20 inches apart for me to get into the wood below. So that's not going to be too difficult. And that's what I'm going to mount this thing to. Good to go. So here is what that dry fit looks like. And if we take our tape measure, we look from here to here, you can see that we have that 20-inch mark met. So now you might be wondering why I'm using full 8-foot length runners here. That's because in the event of wanting to upgrade in the future and go with 200 watts, I have plenty of wood to do it. Looks like we have a good fit here. So at this point, you can see the row of screws. I have 2x4 purlings underneath. I'm just going to screw right down through, down into the metal, and right into the purlings. I'm going to do 3 screws on each board. It's not going to be anything too crazy. There's one. Let's reach over here. See if we can get this one. There's 2. Three. There's 4. There we go. We got our runners installed. Now let's get the panel up there. Okay, so the screws that we're going to be using are the ones that were included. They do require an 8mm nut setter. I'm going to put the junction box with the MC4s closer to the camera, just like that. Something like that. Make sure that everything's dry fitted well, filling on both sides, making sure everything feels good, that we're in contact with the wood really well, and it feels that we are. So let's go ahead and put these screws down in right here. There's one. And here you can see we have it screwed down right here. And then of course on this side, and there's plenty of airflow underneath here. I want to take my charge controller and I want to mount it right here for easy access. It'll be easy for me to run my wires in, and it'll also be easy for me to run my wires from here to the light and also to the battery. So I think right here is going to be a good spot for this charge controller. And there is our charge controller installed. Very nice. Let's start running wires. Okay, let's go ahead and put these little terminals on since it comes with them anyway. So here we got these wires. Let's go ahead and cut these open. These ain't bad looking wires. I'm still kind of blown away that we got this much kit for that small of a price. This is a lot of good equipment here. So let's just see if we can get that on there, and let's strip this back a little more. I want these connections to be nice. There we go. We got a little bit of wire coming through. So now we'll crimp this one down. Just like that. And that looks good. We'll do the same thing here with the negative. They were selling the 200 watt kits that had a 30 amp charge controller for 118 bucks. So it was pretty much the same thing, but it came with 2 panels and a bigger charge controller. Very, very good prices on these. So right there in the corner is a lithium iron phosphate battery, and it's not far from this charge controller. So I'm going to go ahead and run the wires, positive and negative, to this battery up to these terminals right here on the charge controller. So I understand that this is borderline out of frame, but I'm just going to go with it. And at this point the charge controller should come to life. Which it just did. It came alive. So we have a live charge controller. I'm happy about that. We have 13.2 volts. I'm going to push and hold, and I want to make sure that we're getting B07, which we have. So we have B07, which means we have the right battery type for this charge controller, lithium iron phosphate. It's set for that. Okay, we're going to clean up these wires, and I got some little zip ties here. Of Of course, if you're not planning on upgrading or anything, you could totally just hide these wires or cut them, whatever you wish. But for me, I'm just going to leave them long. In the event that maybe I want to change something or put this on a different structure or anything like that, I'll have the ability to do that. And just kind of stuff them up out of the way. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. It doesn't look too bad. I'm happy with that. So there's the battery, the wires coming up, little twist right into the controller. So the next part is going to be these little screws and this light. I'm going to mount this light overhead right above the camera here. I'm just going to screw it right above us. There's one. And let's try a second screw right there. Turn the clutch down real low. I don't want to overstrip these. Don't want to make it too tight on there. And from here, we'll take this part and just screw it right on that little light. And this will be nice. This will give us some light in the event that we need some light in this little building. This is going to be really nice. Okay, so we're going to take those wires and run them right over here to the charge controller. So I'm just going to tuck them up around these pieces of wood a few times. Nothing too significant, nothing too crazy. Just a very easy run of the wires. Now we'll connect those to the charge controller, starting with the negative right there. Let's tighten that in. Positive is going to follow. See the lights coming on? There we go. We got light. Very simple. I'm happy about that. Now let's get the solar panel plugged in. Let's make these MC4 connections just like the previous wires. I'm going to leave these long. These can only go one way, so there's not a wrong way to do it. They are sensitive to positive and negative, so you're not going to do it wrong. That's all I'm going to do there. I'm just going to stuff these MC4s underneath the solar panel, and then I'm going to run these wires inside. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So when I go over the edge to prevent this metal from cutting the wire, I'll just make like a little loop like this, and then I'll secure it at the top and the bottom with those zip ties. I'll show you a little bit later what that looks like. And there's what that looks like. You see it's got a nice little loop. It's just secured with a screw and a zip tie. Nothing fancy. But the main thing is I don't have to worry about chafing of the wires. I have my wires inside the building. I'm going to do the same thing that we did earlier with the other wires. Here, our system is pretty well connected. So now on the charge controller, you can see that it's showing solar activity. If I want to turn the load on, you can see the load indicator and the light comes on and off. Now I can close this little door, and that just protects all the wires, and everything is installed. Let's take a look at that little overhead light. Very nice. It puts a lot of light out in this building, so very nice. I'm going to take some zip ties, and I'm just going to zip tie up this little wire to terminate it, and that's all there is to it. Cut these ends and just shove them back there, and they'll be fine. And again, no chafing right here. I'm really happy about that. high winds and stuff, these ain't gonna chafe because they're nice and stiff. I've got the owner's manual for the charge controller and the solar panel, and I'm just gonna stick it right under the lithium phosphate battery. So it'll be kept safe right there, well protected, and if I ever need that information, it's right there. So you remember the cord from earlier. What am I going to plug it into? I have a 1000 watt Ampeak power inverter. I will set it up there, and I will plug the negative to the negative terminal and the positive to the positive terminal. I might see a spark because it charges the capacitors in the inverter. So now no sparks. So now we have a power inverter that we can plug in our solar pump to. Now from here we push this button, and now we have power to run our jet pump. And here is a look at the jet pump. We have the pressure switch for the pressure tank, and then that cord goes up right to the power inverter. 13.1 volts is the voltage of our battery according to the inverter. 13.2 is what my charge controller says, and I love that I can turn this light on and off. This is fantastic. I'm really happy with this install. So right now I'm looking in the pump house and you can't see anything, but when I turn the light on, now you can see that it's lit up very well. So even though it's a small light, it does a good job showing what's in the pump house. Well folks, that's all I have for you today, installing the 100 watt monocrystalline solar panel kit with the light. This is awesome. This was a very easy install, works like a champ. Now I have the ability to run my jet pump off of solar power. Now some of you watching might be wondering about the angle of the panel. It's not the ideal angle, but it's just running a jet pump that doesn't run that much. So it has plenty of time all day long to catch up the battery. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, please leave a comment down below and thumb up this video. And if you're interested in the solar panel kit that I installed today in this video, I'll put a link in the description box down below. So with all that being said, folks, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a beautiful day. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody.